You know, when you hear about Yemen, what usually comes to mind? Probably headlines about conflict, right? Hardship. But there's another story there, a much older one. It's a story about survival, about ancient wisdom, and it's a story that hasn't been written down in books. It's written in the land itself. So let's get into it. Way back, over 1,000 years ago, this brilliant Arab Islam physician, Al-Arazi, said something so simple but so powerful. Your medicine is in your food. I mean, think about that. He was one of the very first people to really spell out that deep connection between what we eat and how we feel. And this isn't just some dusty old quote, not at all. See, in southern Yemen, that idea, it's not just a nice thought. It's a key to survival. It's how people have lived for centuries in one of the toughest, most arid places on Earth. They have this incredible, vast library of knowledge about wild plants. Basically, an entire cookbook that's never, ever been written down. And here's the kicker. All of that knowledge was on the verge of disappearing. For good. And that is what this is all about. We're looking at the very first attempt to finally write down this unwritten cookbook, to capture centuries of knowledge before it's lost to war, to time, to, well, to everything. So where does all this come from? Well, it's all thanks to a landmark study from 2021 by a researcher named Mohammed Al-Fatimi. It was published in the Journal of Ethnobiology and Ethnomedicine, and let me tell you, this was not just another academic paper. No way. This was basically a rescue mission, the first ever scientific documentation of this knowledge for the entire country. All right, so the big question is, what did they actually find? What was hiding inside this wild pantry? Well, the results are, honestly, they're pretty mind-blowing. They paint a picture of this incredible biodiversity that has kept people alive through the absolute worst of times. 58. Just let that number sink in. The study documented 58 different species of wild plants that people eat. That's not just a handful of berries here and there. That's a massive, diverse pantry of natural resources. It just goes to show how deeply these communities know their environment. But get this. This is where it gets really wild. For 12 of those plants, this was the first time they were ever recorded as food. Ever. Anywhere in the world. This one study literally added new ingredients to humanity's cookbook. Just incredible. Okay, so let's break down what these plants actually are. More than half of them are herbs, and a lot of those are succulents, plants with thick, fleshy stems and leaves. And that makes perfect sense, right? It tells you that people are focusing on plants that are built to survive in dry climates and can give you a quick hit of fresh food right on the spot. All right, think of this as the top 5 chart of Yemen's wild edibles. That citations number, that's just how many of the 250 local people that were interviewed mentioned using that plant. And look at the top one, Ziziphus spina Christi. Its fruit was mentioned by pretty much everyone. But what's really cool is the sheer variety. We're talking fruits, stems, leaves, even the flower of a parasitic plant is a local staple. Who knew? Okay, so we know what they're eating. The next logical question is, how are they eating it? How does this stuff go from a plant in the ground to a meal on a plate? Well, the methods are just as fascinating as the plants themselves. And the answer is pretty surprising. Check this out. Out of all 58 plants, a whopping 46 of them are eaten raw. Just picked and eaten right there. You could say it's the original fast food, packed with nutrients. Only a small handful are usually cooked, mostly leafy greens that get boiled up. Let's look at a classic example. This plant, called alfaq. Now, this one's a big deal because you can find its leaves all year round. And the prep? It couldn't be simpler. You collect the leaves, clean them, boil them in water with a bit of salt, and that's it. It's eaten as a paste or with bread. And when food is scarce, they'll even mix it with flour to make what little they have last longer. It's not fancy, but it is pure survival. But this is about so much more than just finding something to eat. These plants they're woven into the very fabric of the culture. They're about security, about making a living, and about health in a place that has seen more than its fair share of challenges. I mean, just look at all the roles these plants play. First, food security. They are the absolute last line of defense during droughts or war. Then there's income. People actually sell the most popular plants, like those Ziziphus fruits, in local markets to make a living. And maybe most importantly, there isn't really a clear line separating food from medicine. There's this local saying that the study recorded, and it just says it all. What is bitter? It is a medicine. The belief is that if a plant tastes bitter, it probably has healing properties. They even have a special word for these plants, dawa, which means both drug and health food, something that gives you kuwa, power, strength, immunity. The whole landscape is basically their pharmacy and their grocery store, all in one. Okay, but here's where the story takes an urgent turn. Because this incredible living library of knowledge, it's fragile. And with everything changing so fast, this entire unwritten cookbook is in real danger of being wiped out forever. The researcher who did this study, Al-Fatimi, actually did surveys in 2 different time periods, about 20 years apart. And what he found is, well, it's pretty scary. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, everyone knew this stuff, even the kids. But by 2016, a huge gap had appeared. The younger generation, they just didn't know the plants anymore. The chain was breaking. And that right there is exactly why documenting all of this is so unbelievably important. Modern life, war, people moving away, all of it is threatening to snap that chain of knowledge passed down from person to person. So this study, it wasn't just academic research. Like I said before, it was a rescue mission. So why does all this matter? What's the big takeaway? Well, look, saving this knowledge isn't just some quaint, nostalgic project. It's about preserving a living library of human culture. It's about giving communities a fighting chance at food security in a really volatile world. And, it's a powerful reminder to all of us to recognize the value of the nature around us. Maybe, just maybe, some of the answers we're looking for are literally growing wild right under our feet. The story of these plants in southern Yemen is really a story about human wisdom everywhere. It's about knowledge held by communities all over the globe. And it leaves us with a really big and honestly a pretty sobering question to think about. How many of the world's other unwritten cookbooks are going to disappear before we even get the chance to read them?